Hello, fellow Planeswalkers, it's Scott, and today we're looking at day 9 of Wilds of Eldraine spoilers. We're coming to you on the official Caffeinated Gamers YouTube channel, who we want to thank for sponsoring this video and all of our Wild Eldraine spoiler videos. And also, please remember to like and subscribe to get further content like our top 10 list later on this week. So let's jump into day 9 of Wild of Eldraine spoilers. So first thing, we didn't get a lot of cards today, at least at the time I'm recording this. We didn't get a lot, but we did get some really interesting cards from today's offering. So the first is Regal Bunnicorn. For 1 and a white mana, you get a Rabbit Unicorn, and Regal Bunnicorn's power and toughness are each equal to the number of non-land permanents you control. So this is creatures, artifacts, enchantments, anything you've got on the battlefield, you get power and toughness for this. So this is a really good ability because typically we see this ability on 3 drops where you kind of get power and toughness for everything that's on the field. But for 2 mana, it makes it a really low to the ground, cheap costing card that just grows and grows over the course of the game for you. So I think this is likely to see definite play in Standard, potentially in our decks that are going to be token focused, because we've got a number of cards that are going to help generate a large number of tokens, and Regal Bunnicorn can become huge if it's in that kind of deck. Next, we've got Virtue of Courage. For 3 and 2 red mana, you get an enchantment, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, you may exile that many cards from the top of your library. You may play those cards this turn. This is a very interesting card. We've got a lot of incidental ways in mono red to do damage. We've got Kumano Faces Kakuzan, we've got Chandra, we've got the Invasion of Tarkir, all these kind of things that are doing incidental damage. On top of that, we play with fire and with lightning strikes. So we've got a lot of different ways to do direct damage to an opponent. And the ability then to draw cards from that is really powerful. One of the things that red really lacks at times is card draw advantage, and this is just a card draw engine in red. Now, it also has an adventure, Embereth Blaze. For 1 and a red mana, you get an instant, and Embereth Blaze deals 2 damage to any target. So it's also a burn spell, and I think that's where you've got to think about it first, because if you remember, we had Bone Crusher Giant in the previous Eldraine set that had basically the same ability that was played tremendously, and I think you have to take that same approach with it. While Virtue of Courage isn't a 4/3 body on the battlefield, it is a good card that in the late game you can use to gain some card advantage if you've got some direct damage spells, and I think that's where it's going to shine potentially in Standard, is getting it down in the mid to late game and then hitting your opponent for 2 or 4 and then getting those cards and being able to either put the creatures on the field that you need to finish off your opponent, or maybe get the burn you need to finish off your opponent. Next, we've got Gumdrop Poisoner. For 2 and a black mana, you get a Human Warlock with lifelink. That's a 3/2. And when Gumdrop Poisoner enters the battlefield, target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. We've got a lot of little incidental life gains cards in black already, with Shealdred, with Graveyard Trespasser, with things like Oni Called Anvil even. So we've got the ability to gain life, or if we want to attack, we've got other cards that can gain you some life in black. So I think this is definitely playable in Standard. It's just finding the right black shell for it to take advantage of that -X/-X ability. We also have the Adventure, Tempt with Sweets. For a black mana, you get to create a food token. So, incidental life gain right there. You cast that, you crack it, you can gain 3 life, and that will help facilitate Gumdrop Poisoner's ability to give a creature -X/-X. Next, we've got Song of 2/10s. For X and a red mana, you get a sorcery, and you create X 1/1 black creature rat tokens. With this creature cannot block, creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So there's 2 ways I think of looking at this card. It's a 1 mana give all of your creatures haste spell, and it's also a token generator. So I think this can fit in a variety of red decks. If you've got a token strategy and you really want to create a bunch of tokens, you can do that in the mid to late game, 3, 4, 5, 1/1 black rat creature tokens. Or you can use it to give things that don't naturally have haste for that 1 mana, and maybe you create a couple of bodies along the way just because you want to use your mana. So I think it's got a variety of applications. So this is going to find a spot somewhere in Standard, but the question is where. And more importantly, is the rat deck going to want something like this? Because we know we've got enough cards to build a rat deck in Standard. Next, we've got Horned Lock Whale. For 4 and 2 blue mana, you get a whale. That's a 6/6. It has Flash and Ward 2. And Horned Lock Whale enters the battlefield tapped unless it's your turn. So if you play it on your opponent's turn, you don't get the ability to use it as a blocker. But that's probably, in the big scheme of things, not all that important. It obviously has an adventure, which is the instant Lagoon Breach for 1 and a blue mana. The owner of target attacking creature you don't control puts it on the top or bottom of their library. So you can take a creature out of combat and make your opponent have to recast that creature to get that value in the future. So I think there's some application for it. Certainly in Limited, this is a really good card to play. I'm not sure where this would fit, though, in the current Standard, because we've got other cards that do similar things that aren't seeing play. Next, we've got some of our lower rarity cards for the day. The first is Woodland Acolyte. For 2 and a white mana, you get a human cleric. That's a 2/2. And when Woodland Acolyte enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. So this is reminiscent of a number of cards we currently have in white in Standard, where you pay an extra mana, in essence, for the card to draw a card when it comes into play. And I think that in and of itself makes Woodland Acolyte potentially a card that might have some playability in Standard. Now it also has the adventure, Mend the Wilds, for a green mana, and you can put target permanent card from your graveyard on top of your library. So I think that's a really nice ability, something you end up in your graveyard, you need it back, 1 mana, put it on top of your library, you draw it with the next card, draw you have, whether that's during your upkeep or you have a card draw spell to get it. And I think that combination makes Woodland Acolyte a card that has some playability potentially in Standard, certainly in Limited, a very good card because of the ability to bring something back from the graveyard. Next, we have Imidane's Recruiter. For 2 and a red mana, you get a human knight. That's a 2/2. And when Imidane's Recruiter enters the battlefield, creatures you control get +1 and gain haste until end of turn. So that haste ability is actually pretty important, because a number of the spells we've seen today, when we're talking about creating tokens or good cards coming into play, they don't have haste. Imidane's Recruiter gives everything haste. Now, is this going to make this Standard playable? Probably not, because I think we've got better things in the 3-drop spot right now in red that we're going to want to use. Now, it also has an adventure that's a sorcery, Train Troops. For 4 and a white mana, you get 2 white knight creature tokens with vigilance. So a little bit overcosted for that as well. So I think this card has some good playability in Limited. I'm not sure if it's got a home in Standard. And next we've got Gingerbread Hunter. For 4 and a green mana, you get a giant. That's a 5/5. When Gingerbread Hunter enters the battlefield, create a food token. So you get a little bit of value with that, but not anything to write home about in terms of power and toughness. We've got other things that are just better in Standard right now that are not seeing play. So in terms of Standard playability, I don't see a lot of Standard playability with this, but in Limited, a nice card to have as the top end of your curve. It also has an adventure. That's an instant. And Puny Snack. For 2 and a black mana, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. So the fact that it has some removal attached to it in the adventure makes this a little bit better in terms of its playability, but I don't think it makes the cut in Standard. Next, we've got our last card of the day, Quick Study. For 2 and a red mana, you get to draw 2 cards. Okay. Certainly in Limited, a good card for a card draw, but in Standard, we've got a lot better cards that we can draw cards with. All right. So that's day 9 of Wild of Eldraine spoilers. Not a lot of cards today, but some good ones. So look forward to tomorrow, where we'll get probably the last rares and mythics from the set. And then on Friday, we'll get the full card release, and all the commons will come out that we haven't seen yet. I'll be back tomorrow for the last day of Wild of Eldraine spoilers, and we'll also be back Friday to take a look at that card dump to see if there's anything that has some standard playability in it. Thanks for staying to the end of the video. Again, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this, and I will see you next time.